want to introduce to you our speaker here today. So to just give you some context on this session, SIY or STEM It Yourself, it is funded through AAAS and the If Then initiative. Nicole Jackson and myself happen to be STEM ambassadors for the If Then initiative, and I'm so happy that she chose to volunteer today to come speak to you about what she does for a living and have some type of interactive activity for you. I want to share a little bit more about her with you. So Nicole Jackson is the Chief Technology Officer of Duet Health and is an If Then ambassador. A technologist, Nicole leads the technical vision for iOS, Android, and web applications, and integrates third-party artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions into mobile healthcare applications for the largest hospitals in the country. So she's kind of a big deal, right? So let's give her a big virtual welcome and hand clap and welcome her today to SIY. Take it away.
Right. Thank you so much. So I decided to create a brand new slide because I realized that this is virtual and interactive and it's kind of hard to explain development. But recently I've been invited to speak at a couple different conferences coming up in a few weeks, and a lot of topics have come up. And since I'm speaking to you guys and you are so young and you are potentially entering into a space where the thing that I do for a living is changing, I wanted to make sure that I gave you some information right now and then showed you how to do it. So it will be interactive. I'll be demoing a few things, and then I have links for you at the end of this presentation to allow you to do this yourself, literally. So at the end of this, you guys should be able to actually ship some applications to the store, design applications, and know the different types of development, okay? Let me start sharing my screen. And let me know when you can see it. Give me 1 second. All right, and then immediately stop subtitles because it drives me crazy. All right, so we're gonna go over a couple different concepts today, which really does encompass the many, many different ways that we build applications. More importantly, the many ways that you all will build applications, because how I build them today has nothing to do with what's gonna happen when you guys get into college and when you get into the workforce. So if you choose this as a path and you choose to get into building apps, hopefully this is your first introduction and it makes you look curious.
Nicole, quick question.
Yeah.
We can see the presenter view.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
That's because it is not showing. Give me 1 second. Share. You should be able to see it now. You still see the presenter or you see the real version?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. All right, so give me a second. All right, so let me start first with an introduction. I never get personal in these. I don't know why. I always just jump into it. So I'll give you some information about myself. It'll give you some context in who I am. My name's Nicole. I was born in East Orange, New Jersey, so I'm definitely an East Coast girl. I'm down here in Houston, Texas now. Fortunately, we didn't get hit with a hurricane because one looked like it was coming towards us. I am the Chief Technology Officer of Duet Health. I'm also a Technical Product Manager, which is just a fancy title for somebody who knows how to build things and likes to build things. I'm currently pursuing my EDD in Learning Science and Technology at Drexel. I completed my Master's of Science in Creativity and Innovation, focusing in technology with Drexel as well. And I have an undergraduate degree that is interdisciplinary. It just means that I studied a bunch of stuff together. My specializations are mobile development, web development, product development, emerging technologies, which means that it doesn't exist yet and we're making it up, and technical creativity. And my domains of expertise are in healthcare and in education. So before we get into anything, I wanted to really impose on you guys this idea that you are many things in one. And I think that's important because we have a problem often of thinking about associating a title that a person has with who the person is. But you, as you grow into becoming young women, into adulthood, you will be many, many different things. So I am a cellist. I'm also a soldier. I also just happened to go to Catholic school when I was little. And I'm also, as you can see, tattooed quite a bit. I'm a student and I'm an If Then ambassador. And these are some of the women that I've shared this ambassadorship with. I want to make that important distinction because I'm also a mom. and I'm also a spouse, and I'm a lot of things in one. And none of those things really have anything to do with being the chief technology officer. So as you guys get older, do not make the mistake of assuming that your job title is you, because you can have all the titles in the world, but if you are not grounded in who you are as a person, it won't matter. So always be who you are and be comfortable with that. More importantly, don't neglect the parts of yourself by assuming that you have to commit to being only one thing. I build technology. That doesn't mean that I wake up every morning and I play with a piece of technology. It doesn't mean that I have to go to every single technology conference. Honestly, I was not a kid that built computers when I was little. So if you get into a computer science program, you're going to meet some people who built video games and played with computers when they were little. You're going to meet some people who really don't care about it and they fell into it. All of those experiences are equally valid. You don't have to be extreme at anything to be valid at something, okay? I want to impose upon you that as you move into the next phase of where technology is going, even as a user of technology, it will be more important to understand that it is not enough to be logical anymore, which means that people talk about the math side of your brain versus the creative side. It is not enough to be smart and logical and analytical. You will also need to be creative. That's because people who are overly technical, who can do things that are repeated, I can literally code something to do the same thing. I don't need a person doing that. So the thing that I care about the most is the humanistic experience someone brings to it, because what they're building and how people feel when they build it matters more than the code behind how you build it, okay? And I say that because you guys are gonna hear quite a bit that creativity matters. And listen, the reason why I decided to put a new slide together was because I hear it and then I'm sitting on different panels talking about it, but I don't think people have connected the dots yet and why that matters. So I'm gonna show you why it matters. So I'll start with what I do. There's 4 different things related to what I do for a living. The digital leader, which means that I am looking constantly for business impacts on what's changing in the market and what's gonna make us the most money. That's very honest and very transparent. I am constantly working with our business team, specifically our CEO, and explaining technology and why this piece of technology is going to change how we do business. So I not only know a lot about business and specifically in healthcare and education, but I also know a lot about external factors that are driving that. And I'll give you a high level introduction to economics before we get into this, because it matters and it'll hopefully connect. The CTO is an innovator. Those are people who are discovering emerging technologies, things that don't exist. At best, a person can discover and know that an emerging technology matters. Like you hear stuff about blockchain, you think about Bitcoin and so on and so forth. But in my world, blockchain has a whole different application and it has a whole different potential. At best case, we create them, meaning there are things that are in the market that don't exist. And that's one thing that Duet Health specializes in. Things don't exist in the market. And so hospitals work with us to say, I want to solve this problem, but I don't even know if it's possible. And my team doesn't know if it's possible. And they throw it over the wall at us and then we build it. And either we fail or we succeed. And we're comfortable with both, because normally when we fail, we learn something along the way. And as it turns out, there's been several things that we failed at that we've been able to think about 2 or 3 years later, and we build a whole brand new product off of it. And then finally, the operating side, which this little section right here is my least favorite side. Can't stand that. That's the administrative side of doing paperwork and doing all the things. It's not my favorite, but it is required. So those are the 4 parts to what it is to be a chief technology officer. And now I'm going to go into skill sets. And I say this because, ladies, I want for you, if you are moving or think you might be interested in technology, especially after we do this and we do some demos, I want you to aspire to either own your own piece of technology or drive the technology other people own. It is okay to go in and to program. There's nothing wrong with that. But the way the market is moving right now and the way the world is being shaped, you guys as being owners of the ideas that you're generating gives you a certain amount of power that there is no other thing that can give you that type of power, especially in this space. And so I want that for you desperately. Hard skill sets that I have I have a foundation in Android, iOS, and web development. I understand it thoroughly. I can code in it. I understand it end to end. I also understand product management. I know product management so well, I've written curriculum on product management. I care about product management, which is literally people who sit around and say, I need to build an application that solves a problem. I need to be able to pick people up in a car. And so that product manager created Uber. That product manager created Lyft because they saw a real problem and they knew how to solve it, or they thought they did, so they tried it. I have a foundation, a strong one in the healthcare domain. The education domain, I'm also equally strong, but my career is in the healthcare domain. IQ, I have different intelligences, but IQ is a hard skill set that drives how people solve problems very quickly, right? Soft skills, creative problem solving, business acumen, and analytical/convergent thinking. Okay, so creative problem solving is how you literally go about solving a problem very quickly when you code. Good developers don't have a lot of code. They have a short amount of code that gets right to the point. Know that now. Having fancy code with a lot of stuff, I can literally tell when I've had a really smart student come in and they do like 27,000 steps because they want to show me the gymnastics they can do. That's great, but you only need to do A to B. Thank you for that. I appreciate that you are intelligent. You didn't need to do that. Business acumen, understanding people is all that means. Understanding the people that I work with, understanding the people that we work with as a company, understanding their need. That's a hard skill set, believe it or not, because you have to analyze people constantly to try to figure out what they're trying to get to, because oftentimes they don't know. So you have to tease it out of them, basically. Analytical and convergent thinking. Now, I put this graphic in the background because it's curious. We make a mistake of assuming that the brain is one or the other. As it turns out, they're a mix and a combination of the two. When you are in technology, you are both. So I want to bring that out because when you go on a creative side, synthesizing a lot of information at one time. I have things thrown at me all the time. I have to understand what's happening on the outside of my company with competition. I have to understand some of the issues that are happening internally. I have to understand what are the factors with money that's real. How many people do we have? How much is that going to cost? How much does the technology cost? How much budget do they have? All of these things combined to say, what is the best solution to solve this problem? I'm highly organized. I am, that's an understatement. Even my phone is organized. My phone, every single app on my phone lives in a little bucket, and you'll get to see it in a little bit because I'm going to demo some apps on my phone. And, I just want to be clear, you need to be organized and have that together. And then EQ, which for you guys means emotional intelligence. That is something that women as leaders are uniquely poised to take advantage of. So I'm not saying that men are not emotionally intelligent. I'm not being sexist. I am saying that you as young women, you have a natural skill set based on the fact that you were born as a woman, which requires you to use your emotion to navigate other people's feelings. As a result, I think women make incredible leaders because oftentimes in organizations, especially technical ones that are male dominated, they are very logical and very driven by IQ without understanding the emotional factors and how that would affect something. I can name 75 million reasons and ways that that's happened in my career, and we can spend a whole thing on that. I'm not going to. I'm just going to let you know that as a woman, developing this and developing that skill set is going to be very important for you as a leader in the future. Soft skills, you need to be curious. Curiosity cannot be taught. Curiosity is when you see something and you have a natural pull method in learning, which means that you go right on to Google because you want to know what that word means. Curiosity means that you go right on to Google because you don't understand what something is and you learn it yourself. That is a natural skill set. If you do not have that naturally, you should start developing it now because that will be where the future is. Otherwise, the future is going to happen and you're not going to know what was coming because you weren't Googling. So just some advice there. Highly developed communication skills. Learning how to express yourself in a very concise manner. What I mean by that is half of the time I'll get on a call with a client and I'm probably on a call for 5 minutes. That's because I get right to the point and I ask the questions I need to ask and I jump right off the call. That seems short to some people. I don't really dance around communication too much, but I get right to the point, and having good communication skills where you are combining EQ and understanding the emotions of people with also the intent behind what's trying to be communicated will make you very effective in life in general. And then being intuitive and being a divergent thinker. Divergent thinking is that part of your life or that part of your thought where you come up with a lot of ideas. You being able to take all of those ideas, using intuition because it feels right, and then using analytical or convergent thinking to shrink all of those ideas down to the thing that makes the most sense. If you can balance these two skill sets, you will become a highly creative thought leader within an organization. And that ends up leading to quite a bit of success. So I just want to make sure I went over that before we jump into it. All right, skip one. So our objectives today. First thing, I want to introduce you very quickly to some very common sense general economic principles, macroeconomics, microeconomics, but I'm not even going to go that deep into it. I'm just going to talk to you about the external factors that I talked about within a company and the internal factors in a company. And I'm going to jump into Figma. Figma is a demo I like to do quite a bit. I actually have a pretty awful app. This proves that I'm an awful designer. And while I'm good at building products, I can't draw and can't create anything to save my life. So I have to use things like Figma to try to express what that is. I'm going to show you that because for those of you who may not be interested in coding, but may actually like the idea of applications, as it turns out, there's a very valid career that right now probably goes for about $120,000 to $150,000 a year for UX or UI designer. And those people are highly creative. Those are my people who go to art school, and they are very good at understanding what people like and understanding how people use applications. And then they create a version of that that looks like an application. It's not, but it is absolutely what my mobile and my web engineers use to build applications. So before we even commit a single line of code, we use Figma, right? Next, I'm going to show you no code application development. I think you need to learn it. That's an application you could literally not draw up a single line of code, and all of a sudden you got an app live. Low code, which is the in-between, which means you need to learn logic. For our parents out there, these are also things that you can use as well. So if you are an entrepreneur and you are interested in potentially spinning up your own stuff, you could use these to ship applications very well. And then finally, full control demos. I decided to show you here some applications I built and my company's built, and then I'm going to show you a really cool mobile application that teaches you how to code so that you know, and I'm going to throw a bunch of resources at you so that you guys can learn how to code for free. So you don't have to pay anybody to do it. That way, by the time you get into college, you're already coding, right? And then finally, we'll do Q&A. I'll send this presentation over, and then you guys will have all these links so you can use them over and over again. And most of the stuff is free, okay? All right. So first step, macro means external, micro means internal. And it has variations, just so you know, of why we build applications. I'm telling you this now because the goal is for you to build an application. So first, you're going to say, I want to build an app that solves this. You're going to say, I want to build a social media app, or I want to build an app about dog walking, or whatever you want to build. But the first thing I would tell you is, internally in your environment, in your neighborhood, for the dog walking one, do people have dogs? First step. Then who needs to walk a dog, or who can't walk a dog right now? Who would need someone to walk a dog? So is that going to an area where people are a little older and they aren't able to get out as much because we're in the middle of COVID and they shouldn't be out and exposed to COVID? Is that an opportunity for you to spin up an entire business from an app that allows people to request your services? Absolutely valid. But the external factors are, you know, do you have competition? And if so, how much do they charge? Are you allowed to do that at your age? And if not, who could? All of these things become external factors in how I build applications because I have to analyze every single one of these. Can I legally do it? Who am I doing it for? Is it socially acceptable? Who's my competition? Is there a global impact to this? What is my technological insight? Meaning what technology is available for me to even solve that problem? And what's the economic impact around it? How much money am I gonna make? If I'm not gonna make a lot of money, and in my business that matters, why am I doing it, right? If I'm in a not-for-profit, it doesn't matter so much. So based on what you're trying to solve, these things matter. Internal environments. These things matter because they're based on resources. If you're building something alone, you might want to choose a low-code option or a no-code option because you don't have to hire developers to do it. If you have the money to hire developers, okay, well then that changes things. You could build an entire company around it. So I'm telling you guys this now because, like I said, I want you guys to get very much used to being entrepreneurs and building things that solve problems. I do not want you so much focused on getting a job and building someone else's, because jobs change too much, as we've seen from the economy, okay? All right, so before we jump into low code, no code, and all that stuff, I'm gonna tell you why it exists and what happened. Once upon a time, as you can see from this trend, this is up to 2022, which is in 2 years. These are the jobs that are in technology right now, and these are the people graduating with technology degrees. I'm gonna say it one more time. This is how many jobs we have. These are how many people we're graduating. That's a problem. So in recent years, we've seen this trend where they say, hey, you don't need to have a college degree to code anymore. They did that because we don't have anyone graduated with college degrees. So we're struggling right now in technology. We have been for years, basically since I've been in it, which has been over a decade. We've literally heard that we don't have enough people, or what are we gonna do to solve it? At first, we thought that we could solve that with immigration. We still weren't producing enough people with even immigration to bring in enough technologists. And we still didn't have enough interest in STEM, which is why it's so important for you guys to be here to attract people to this field anyway. These jobs on average are at least 6-figure jobs. So it's not that people don't make money, right? It's that people think that STEM and technology are complicated or hard. People aren't attracted to it. Well, that's happening at the same time where the reliance on technology has increased. COVID made it worse. So we were already struggling with trying to find enough engineers and developers, right? And at one point, especially depending on what city you were in, companies were stealing each other's resources. So you would turn around and hire somebody, and then 6 months later, your competition or someone who's not even competition would steal your resources. But it's not like new people were coming into play. We just didn't have people. So as a result, when there's low demand or high demand, or this should be low supply, by the way. That's not demand. That's the wrong word. So I should edit that. But when you have low supply, ignore that, now edit it, and high demand, the economy will respond accordingly. Just like with life, when you cannot solve a problem because you add people, then you figure out shorter ways to do something. Cue things like Figma. So Figma is the first introduction that you guys are gonna have to technology today. There's a difference between wireframing and prototyping. I'm going to show you both, okay? And an awful demo that just goes to show why we need it, because people like me can't draw, but we like to build things, so we have to figure out how to make it true. So a few things. If you are interested in the concept of building an app and you're artistic, but you don't want to code, that's okay. Design is for you. We need plenty of those too. We also don't have designers anywhere. It's really, really hard to find them. And normally we have to build them and groom them. And it takes a really long time to make a good designer. So if you guys are interested in that, I think there are boot camps right now that are based on design that might go, chapstick, black girls apply chapstick, that might go for maybe 6 months. And I've seen people graduate from those and get a job. And about a year and a half later, those people are also making $100,000 a year, just so you know. So it's important for me to tell you this because no product, literally zero product that you use. And what I mean by product is an application, whether or not it's Snapchat or it's Twitter or it's TikTok or anything else, was ever created without a designer. It's not possible because we need people to tell us how we're going to build them, right? Good designs understand how people use applications and how they do things with the least amount of clicks. Your goal when you build an application is to build something so that the thing that a person is trying to accomplish, they click it and it's done. That's how it should work. It doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need to be fancy. It just needs to get the job done. More importantly, it should also be pretty, okay? Because people are driven by what they think looks good. These jobs, as I was saying before, designers, UI and UX engineers, meaning user interface and user experience engineers, build prototypes. And I am going to show you one. Let me know if you can see this website when it comes up. Can you see this?
We see the PowerPoint slides still.
All right. So this is what happens when people like me can't draw. So someone says, so literally I was at a museum probably right before COVID, and I was trying to prove a point. He said, so I can't draw. That's supposed to be a horse. Someone told me it looks like a human. Someone told me it looks like something else. I don't really know what it was, but I knew what I was trying to do, right? So it started off as a horse. And this girl came up to me and she said, hey, I just pet my first horse for the first time, and I want to know if there are other people in the area that are interested in horses. So I would build an app off that. How would we do it? I was like, cool. So first you start with drawing something. In a wireframe, which is what this represents, we understand that there are things up here that we're going to navigate to. This probably means there's some kind of box for, I don't know, something like notifications. There's a button here, which is called the CTA, called the call to action. And then there are other menu options down here. So I need to start out with knowing, right? Just talking to this girl, said, okay, what do you think you're gonna want? Next step, as we start wireframing, we start to get into saying first, well, it should look like a horse, because otherwise if someone looks at that, they have no idea what it is. Okay, well, we're starting to develop more clearly what we think this app is gonna look like. We know that we wanna be able to navigate home. She knows that there needs to be something called My Horse, and she knows that there's something called a farm finder. Her goal was to try to find other horses in the area. Okay, cool. As we develop this, as we get a little bit more granular, we give the app a name. I just happen to like the movie when I was younger, Black Beauty, made me cry a couple times. So I decided to name this old pretty horse Black Beauty. I said, okay. So I got messages and I got notifications. I got all types of things. I have My Horse. Well, what happens if I click into it? Well, now I know stats about this horse. Now I can find other people in the local Columbus, Ohio area, which this is built. All of this entire demo that I just showed you, comes on a free software called Figma. It's my first demo of the day. I think this took us maybe about 35 minutes to build because it's drag and drop. All of a sudden, the engineers that I work with now understand from beginning to end what we expect from this application. From this awful thing, from when I cannot draw, producing something, to this final piece here that allows me to navigate to many, many different widgets. This thing using a demo and an application called Figma is a career. And I'm telling you this now because guess what? For some reason, no one knows about it. I have no idea why no one knows this career exists, but it's a real one. Every single mobile application and engineering and web application development company needs it. And for those of you who are artistically inclined, and for those of you who don't think the STEM is for you, but you think that this might be a thing, that's a really good career option for you. Okay, so that's demo number one. All right, gotta share the PowerPoint again. Give me a second. Here we go. Let me know if you see the regular version.
We see it,
Cool. Demo number two, we're going to go into first understanding low code versus no code, because you're gonna get confused. No code means no coding, literally means what I said, right? You don't have to be technical to do a low code option. You just need to know how to draw, drag and drop some pictures and add some stuff in. That's it. Then you ship an application to the store. I suggest these for people who are entrepreneurs, people who just want to build their first application, people who honestly just want to quickly speed into this, speed up the process. The application I'm going to show you is called AppyPie. The reason why I'm going to show you that one is because ironically, AppyPie actually have a couple different templates out there that look an awful lot like Uber, that look an awful lot like Facebook, that look an awful lot like Twitter. And companies have figured this thing out and said, wait a second, I can employ engineers, even though that's not their thing, right? They're not in the engineering business. They don't do software. They have a business and like marketing or something else. I can employ people and pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, or I can use AppyPie and I can spin up an application in a couple days and ship it to the store. They don't need it to be perfect. They just need it to do a job. So just so you know, I'm going to show you the different options. Low code means you do have to have some minimum technical knowledge. Now, this one is a little bit more complicated because you have to understand things like APIs and so on and so forth. But the one that I'm going to show you today actually has a really good set of videos that come with it. The product is free. You can get like a initial demo application live in production, meaning people can use it anywhere around the world. And you don't have to pay for that. And it's a lot more complex. These applications on things like Bumble IO, which is what I'm going to show you today, are things that they may have a person or two people that manage. They're adding things to this application for them, but they're not committing a lot of code to it, and it takes them no time to support it. Okay, so I just want you to understand the differences between the two. For no code, that would be for you as your personal use, or for like a small business or something similar. For low code, that's for a business with some complexity, but you know, it looks like a real legitimate application. It's pretty, okay? First things first, Appy Pie. All right, it's another one where I'm gonna have to open up a link and I'm gonna have to share my thing and we're gonna go through it, okay? And I just happened to mess with a few of these for you guys to create some demos. Can you see this? Let me know if you can. You guys seeing that?
Yeah, we can see it. Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, this is the low code option. Now I'm saying that because it's pretty cool. You sign up for Appy Pie, you can create a free account. This one is an $18 account just because I wanted to show you guys some further functionality. There's a more expensive one, which, like I said, big companies are using. And those are the ones that have like legitimate professional templates like Uber, Twitter, so on and so forth, that look like a legitimate application that's been built professionally by a bunch of Android and iOS developers. It's actually a little shocking. My company also builds something that is considered no code for healthcare. So hospitals can literally use our application and we are constantly adding features to it. You see these feature lists. If I logged into my own, you would see a bunch of different features that a hospital could pick and they can customize it on their own. And then they just deploy it to the store without us. It's perfect. What we do as a product company, we build the features. So we listen to people in the market and we say, what do you need? What do you want? And then we go back and we get back together and we start building those features out and we deploy them. So anyone, just like on Appy Pie, can just click them and use them, right? So I decided to throw this together. This is how highly configurable this is and what configuration is important. It means you can change it. I can select websites that I want to go to on a page and literally build it out and say this page name is going to be Stim It Yourself, right? And you can see it building. Then I can get the website that you guys have here and stick it here. All of a sudden, this page is going to link automatically out, and it'll even show a preview. I'm not going to do that because I'll have to click in and out of this page, and I don't feel like doing that right now. But you get the point, right? If I want to select the call list, guess what? I can say, great. I can name a person and say, call page name is phone numbers or directory. You can see it building. I can say, okay, I want to add a phone number. I'm going to say it's US and 614-657, add my number in here, 00, because it's about to be published, right? So I can add this in and say, boom, add the feature, and all of a sudden you start to see, wait, where'd it go? All right, I messed something up, hold on. Oh, there it is. All right, I think that's a bug, but anyway, you get the point. As you are custom designing this, they have automatic templates and layouts for each and every one of these that you can pick. If you pay for something that's a little bit more expensive, which you guys should not be doing at your age, but don't pay for it. But if you were curious, and for all of our adults, if you want to see how far this thing goes, you can select light and dark options. You can select light and dark mode and pick different layouts. And more importantly, this is how highly customizable this is. I can choose to change the layout of how I want this thing to be. I can choose a whole bunch of different features. And as it goes on, they continue to add feature lists. There are other features that you can add and build over time. I think I spent maybe 8 or 9 minutes on this yesterday, just adding things in and dropping things in to do this quick demo. Just because I wanted to show you guys the potential of you shipping your own application to the store. More importantly, as I save and continue, as you guys get older, there's an option for you, and I'm not going to go through this because it'll take up too much time, to scan this barcode, and then it'll show you how to deploy this to the store. So you build an app, you ship it to the store. I have done this demo with a lot of kids on an application called Nepris, and there was at one point we did a Samsung challenge, which Samsung, I don't know what the award was for the schools, but a bunch of kids, some kids use Appy Pie, some kids use some of the other products that I told them to build, some kids use Figma and never committed a single line of code. And they were all ended up being finalists at one point in that Samsung challenge because they were able to display and show how they would solve a problem by actually building something that solves the problem instead of just talking about it or writing about it. So that is why I'm showing you this process today, okay? I'm about to go on to our second option. Give me a second. Escape. Hold on. Gotta stop displaying. Escape. Give me one moment. Stop sharing. All right. All right. So I'm about to go into Bumble. Now, Bumble is a lot more complicated, okay? And by a lot, I don't mean a whole lot, but I'm just giving you guys the reality of what it is. Hold on. Let's swap this. Go to the PowerPoint. Click that, share. Let me know when you can see Bumble.io low code. Just give me a thumbs up.
We can see it.
Awesome. Bumble.io. All right, before we get into this, remember I said low code means you need to have some general knowledge of logic. That means that you need to know how to solve a problem without a problem being able to drag and drop. The thing about computer programming is you are explicitly telling something how to do something, okay? So I am telling this code exactly how I want this done. If you have a musical background, you might actually be really good at Bumble. And I say that because if you ever played an instrument, you know what it's like to tell something exactly what you need to do. I'm a cellist. I know exactly where to place my fingers and where to place that bow to make the very specific sound that I'm trying to make. And I know that because I'm reading sheet music that tells me the sound I needed to make. That is exactly what coding is. I want to say that now because I think people are more afraid of that than they should be. So if you play any instrument, because I started out playing the trumpet and found that from playing the trumpet to playing the cello, I mean, it's very different sounds, but the ability for my brain to connect what you're asking to what I'm trying to do, the inverse of that in computer science is you get to tell it what to do, right? And so as we move on with this, I'm helping you guys make that distinction now because computer science is the only science in the world. And that's why it's interesting. I think we spend more time creating computer science and thinking about what it actually means. Computer science is the only science where humans can create it. Every other science that we have, we are observing. In computer science, we are creating. And we use a lot of the same principles that exist in natural and physical science to do so, which is the biggest irony. So we can have a whole conversation on that sometime, but back to Bumble. So you need to understand general logic. I'm not expecting you to understand general logic, and this is why. Because when you go to Bumble and you sign up, it's going to take you through a bunch of tutorial classes, and also YouTube has a bunch too. And if I didn't learn anything else about having kids, I have two 18-year-olds. Y'all Google a lot. You learn a lot of stuff on your own. As a matter of fact, to the point where I was trying to teach my son math, and he said I will Google it instead, like I wasn't capable of teaching the math, right? So obviously Google knows more than we do, which I agree because it has more information, right? And so instead of you guys being intimidated by it, you should take the tutorial videos, you should Google things, learn it yourself because you're completely capable, and then you should start building an app on Bumble. To build a prototype, you need to be a hobby user. That's the free version. You get up to 2 gigabytes, I believe. Basically, you can get a couple videos in there and some images. Outside of that, you got to start paying for it, right? But it's not bad. It's not bad for a free site. You can build, initially it's going to take you guys a few days to build. And I know that because I've seen anywhere between an 11-year-old that said that they didn't like coding, but wanted to build a website because they got mad about an issue in their community and wanted to say something about it. Took them a few days. I wanted to say probably about 5 or 6 days or so to initially get his build out. When you become really good at it, it might take a few hours. It's low code, and like I said, it's good for small businesses. So if you guys, want to spin up a website for something in your community or something like that, or an interest that you have, do it. This will absolutely do the job. All right, switch up the screens again. Find the right one. I'm assuming it's this one. We'll find out shortly. What do you mean it failed? All right, hold on. There it is. All right, bet you it'll work now. All right, so I started building this app last night, just out of curiosity. I've used it a few times, but this Bumble situation is a situation. It's like, I like it quite a bit. And this is why. So as you guys see over here, when I told you you need to learn some minor logic stuff. I mean, literally anything you could think of to build a web page exists on Bumble. I've never actually, this is probably one of the best user experiences I've seen for a low code. You can add images, you can add shapes. this stuff is not hard. Like I can add different action items, but you need to know conditions and transitions. The condition means under what condition will this action happen? And the transition means once that is done, what do I move on to next? Interestingly enough, I think that if you guys started with AppyPie, which is why I showed you, and first learned drag and drop, and then you went to Bumble and you started to learn conditions and transitions and so on and so forth, then once we get to the next demo, you're going to understand another concept with coding, which requires you understanding variables, it requires you understanding strings and so on and so forth, and it builds that skill set up. I think that your generation is smart enough to do all of the things at the same time. I think that we made a mistake when we were younger, thinking that you could only focus on one thing. And so that's what we told people to do. I would encourage you guys to build applications and to learn how to code in each and every one of them, because they're all going to support each other. You're going to say, oh, well, that's how they built that in AppyPie, or that's how they built that in Bumble. This is giving you a visual depiction of the thing that you're doing when you're actually coding with no guardrails at all. This is almost like playing like when you bowl with bumpers. This is what this is for coding. And that's why I appreciate it so much, because I think that you guys can learn quite a bit. So there's no way that I could possibly begin to tell you guys how profoundly deep this product goes. You can add search boxes, you can do a whole bunch of stuff. More importantly, they had the nerve to add in responsive design, which is a whole different concept for you guys. I know, I see your face. I'm like, I can't believe it. Responsive design means no matter what device, like if I made this into a responsive UX or a UI, you could pull this up on your mobile phone and it would still function like it would if it was on a web, like if you were on a laptop. It shrinks to the screen itself. So responsive UI is important because you don't know where people can access stuff from. So as you see, it's literally telling me this is what it's gonna look like on a laptop. This is what it looks like on a tablet. If you are in landscape view, this is what this thing is gonna look like. If you're in portrait mode, this is what it's gonna look like, right? So as you guys mess with this, it has a workflow theme that literally starts, it tells you about actions, which is important. It's the logical flow of how you think people are gonna move through an app. The irony here is, if you go into Figma, which is why I show you Figma, guess what happens? It also shows you the same thing using drag and drop. So Figma shows you visually how to make it happen and how to make it to walk through the steps so that you can produce a prototype. And then it says, I'm gonna do that, but then I'm also gonna let you build the site simultaneously. That is the difference between these two apps. Use them all. They're all free. Play with them and actually build an app and deploy it to a store, deploy it to production, so that you can have your first product ever already launched at the age that you are, okay? Here, you see me with my little robot all the time. He's been held hostage at my office since COVID started, so I haven't seen him in months, but figured I'd, go ahead and show you guys what he is, because normally, let me know if you can still see this when it comes up, because this is the preview mode of what they say my site's gonna look like if I had added more stuff to it, right? I can play a video that shows you and open it from YouTube very quickly that shows you what Jibo is, which is my little robot that normally hangs around, and it's an artificial intelligence robot, and he's really cool, and I've integrated a bunch of stuff with him until they took his APIs down. But I just wanted to give you guys an idea of saying, if I wanted to just build, an application or something as an ode to Jibo, I can show you that, okay? All right, so I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint. I told you it's a whole bunch of stuff in here, and we're gonna have to get through it all today. Share. All right, then my next favorite. So I fell in love with the training video. I had a kid that asked me how they can learn how to code. They didn't have a laptop. They were like, how do I code without a laptop? Like, how am I gonna do that? And it bothered me. And then I went on a search for an application that could help this kid and found one, which is pretty cool. So I'm gonna show you guys something called Memo. It is one that is not free. It's free for 30 days. Afterwards, it's $79 a day, but I also included $79 a year. But I also included a bunch of free links for you guys to use that will also assist you in coding to learn what we call full control. Full control is the things that I build, the things that my company builds. We control every bit of code. We build it from beginning to end from the time we design it to the time we deploy it to the store. They're all called native applications, which means that we understand uniquely the things that we have to build to make it work on an iPhone or a Android device, and any Android device, okay? Things that are important. Memo helps with mobile app. Well, so Memo is a mobile application, but it also has a website. The mobile application teaches coding. The website gives you different projects that you can build to prove that you actually understand the skill set that you're learning, okay? I think I could teach you guys website application development on here and how you can use it, but they have a really cool thing called Python. I don't know another way to say this. If I were to ever tell you something that you need to learn right now, and if you were going to start anywhere, I am encouraging you to start with Python. I am telling you that because there's something called machine learning, and machine learning and Python have an intricate relationship with each other. And if you learn this now, I don't know who could stop you. So just know that now, okay? Memo is interesting because it's going to teach you that technical foundation and also the words that we use in technology. I think that's very important because the things that the other sites don't do well, AppyPie or Bumble, is teach you what a variable is or teach you what a string is, all the things I keep talking about. Memo teaches you by training behavior so that you understand the expected outcome and how you, when you put things in a quotes or when you use an equal sign or so on and so forth. And I think that's important because you need to know why that's happening, and it actually explains it to you over the course of time. It gives you that learning foundation to customize your code. That means that, like I said, you guys are unstoppable. When you can write your own code, like who, nope. When you can write your own code, you can write your own ticket. That's the only way I'm going to say it. Okay, so you guys are going to be good to go. And then, you know, software engineers like my company, we build the platforms that enable no code and low code. So it really is a matter of what you want to be. If you don't have an interest, but you want to design, cool. If you think you want to just build a website and put it out there, that's also valid, that's fine. If you think you want to build something that's a little more complex and learn some technical logic, then you would use Bumble, right? But if you want to build the platforms that people use to build their websites, then you need to learn how to code. And that is a very powerful thing, okay? So in order to do this demo, actually, I have to do something a little different. I'm gonna have to show you my device. Now, my device is a live device, which means that even though I have it on Do Not Disturb, someone's gonna text me. So I'm just preparing you guys for that right now. Something's gonna happen. So, you know, fortunately, I don't show my text messages because I know better. So there we go, okay? So in your lives, I also want you to get used to this idea of demoing. Everything that I do requires me to demo all the time. So give me 1 second. Let me find the app for my demo. There it is, my Mirror Reflector app. It is 287 617 531. No. I messed that up. Hold on. 287 617 531. Connect. All right. Stop mirroring. Stop broadcast. So in my company, we built something, we show it, right? We show it with clients. They say, great, you said you built it, I want to see it. When they see it, they don't want to see a demo, they want to see the actual product, right? So what that means for you guys, because you're looking at my live phone, I told you I'm very neat and I put things in the buckets. So Memo is a really cool coding app that I like quite a bit. For example, I hadn't used it in a while, so I had to download it again. It literally walks you through the process of different operations, things that you need to learn over time, how to put things incrementally in order. This is foundational to Python. So it's like, hey, great. I am first going to try to show you what I'm expecting in each order of step is giving you that idea and push next, right? And over time, it says, hey, I want to teach you about inputs. If you input hello world into these, then the output is going to be hello world, right? So it's telling you how to literally format your code. So over time, it says, great, can you please tell me what you would need to put around this to create this action? You should read the instructions. And I'm going to sit here all day and do this because I enjoy it, by the way. But just because I like to get things right. And I know I'm going to be right with these. So it makes me feel good about myself. But over time, it builds skill sets. And it teaches you over time what you need to put in here to get a reaction. Now, I'm saying that because there's something super interesting about this as well, which is, let me see, Memo, where you can have different projects and challenges in Memo over time as well. So I do want you guys, I told you they have web development, but I prefer Python because I think that that's a space that you guys should be uniquely interested in. This is how many different challenges they have over time. It tells you about conditional statements, it tells you about loops, it tells you about all these things to try to help you build skill sets over time. And it keeps adding different projects to you so that as you become more proficient, you are learning how to code on an Apple or mobile application. I think the lesson might take you 15, 20 minutes a day. And you don't know the impact of it until you start to realize that you can start to read code. And when you can start to read it, that means you can start to write it. So I'm telling you these few application options because the impact of being able to build your own applications leads us to the things that Duet has built over time. So this is one that's in development now. It's something that doesn't even exist yet in the market, but we're building it, right? And we build widgets over time. And all these widgets have actions, and these right now call out to legitimate APIs. You see it saying, hey, you need to actually launch your maps. And so all of these things are actual custom applications that exist in the store. We built the Ohio State Universities. How we pull in every single physician, let's say cardiology, down to being able to order, to request a Lyft or an Uber, or down to requesting valet for a mom who was just released from the hospital with her brand new baby, or a cancer patient who's been sick and they're fragile and they need to get home quickly. All of these things are live applications that we've launched to the store, down to, I think my personal favorite, this one, which is, you only get to see some of the functionality here. This one is actually, was featured in the Super Bowl a year ago. And this application supports City of Chicago. And it's important because, believe it or not, during COVID, this application was extremely heavily used by the City of Chicago because it's built by Advocate Aurora. Well, it's built by us, but it's Advocate Aurora's application. We were able to have people schedule virtual appointments, which is super critical. People who needed to get to urgent care or to hospitals, people who needed to check in with Walgreens clinics, or who needed to know wait times in emergency departments when they were sick. You being able to code now can help you with a lot. So I don't even know if you can hear this because it's in my earphones, but this is a meditation where they're, you know, talking and very calmly and getting people to work on breathing exercises. We are actually working on a new feature set for this now that we will be releasing probably in a few weeks. But we support very, very large hospital systems, this being the 10th largest in the country. So I'm telling you all this now because you being able to build yourself allows you to build things like this on a market that don't exist, down to COVID applications for hospitals and now for colleges that I've had. Log in with Face ID. That assists people in daily questionnaires that tell us, you know, whether or not they've been exposed, and these things matter over time, right? They have an actual impact to people over time. We're able to track potential impacts of COVID by using an application, and it's mattered in a pretty significant way. So I'm not putting my phone number in here because we're live, but you know, you get the point. So I'm telling you all this because we have a bunch of applications. This is something called Test Flight, which is very similar to some of the test applications I've shown you, where we build them and we ship them out to each other and we play with them and so on and so forth. And then we get them to that same point where you saw in Appy Pie, where we build it and we see what it's going to look like, or in Bumble, where we build it and we see what it's going to look like. We do that with professional applications as well. My Children's is a massive, massive application for one of the largest children's hospitals in the country. And it supports all different types of children's conditions, from diabetes to cancer, to heart disease, to everything else. We're able to do that because fortunately we have some really, really talented engineers and developers, and we create our own stuff. So let me get back to the presentation, and then I'll wrap that up because we're almost at the finish line. So give me 1 second. Where to go? I think I might have closed it. Oh, sure didn't. All right. So I just told you the importance of those demos and those applications of what I want you guys to learn. That's going to drive me crazy. There. So now I'm going to get into additional resources and costs, so you guys have an idea of like what I just used and how much it might cost you to try to learn this stuff yourself. AppyPie is $0 if you don't want to deploy an app and you just want to learn how to use it. If you want to deploy an app, it's $18 a month. I think for you guys just to learn how to do drag and drop and get the general idea of how applications are built, you shouldn't be worrying about deploying them, okay? Bumble.io, $0 actually for the hobby user that I told you guys about, and as long as you don't use more than 2 gigabytes worth of data, which is good. It escalates from there, so it can be as expensive as like, I think it's like $70-something a month, but that's when you have the whole kitchen sink thrown at you, and you can basically ship an enterprise application to the store. I don't think anyone at your age is shipping an enterprise application to the store, but if you are, then I mean, you know, do it. Memo is free for 30 days, so you could download that right now, play with it, and learn some stuff. And after that, it's $79 per year for any parents that are on. But also, I wanted to make sure I included some free trainings that you don't have to pay for at all, because I just think in 2020, we shouldn't be paying for trainings for stuff. Well, we need engineers in the market, right? And then finally, for the mobile and web design tool I told you guys about, where I did that prototype with that awful course, that's called Figma, and that is free, period. So you could just literally make a free Figma account. I have seen kids produce that. Feature that I did not tell you about in Figma, which is pretty cool. They do something, it generates like things like padding and so on and so forth that become relevant to building an application that tells us exactly how it's supposed to look. And that thing, when it's generated and it's sent over to an engineer, it literally tells them, it gives them the literal instruction on how the user interface is supposed to look and how the exact dimensions the user interface is supposed to be. So it makes development probably 50-60% shorter, because they know everything they need to know up front. So that's pretty important. And then finally, hold on, I have some additional resources. Did I miss some? Oh, let me add that page in. I have another additional resource page somewhere that I added in. It has every list of every single free resource from Python that you guys could be using for free, all the websites and everything that go with it, so you can sign up for it, down to anything that's related to design. And it's basically broken down based on skill set. So if you think that you might be more on a quote unquote creative side, where you want to build it and see how it looks, it even walks you through that stuff too. And now I'll open up for questions.
First of all, I want everybody to give Miss Nicole a big virtual hand clap. She gave you a lot of information, really good stuff. I'm excited because I think you guys probably will develop all kinds of apps, but we'll talk about that later. But we just want to thank you so much, first of all.